He bought an old storefront for $99 at a territorial tax auction. In any normal place, that deal wouldn't exist. You don't buy buildings for less than a tank of gas, not in towns where land still holds value. But there it was. The deed in his hand, keys jangling in his palm like a joke he didn't get yet. Silas Meridian stood in the doorway, staring into a space that smelled like dust and time. The auction clerk had mentioned something odd. The previous owner had seemed surprised by the sale, like they assumed someone else was taking care of the taxes. But the system didn't care about family promises or broken trust. The place looked how you'd expect. Warped wooden floors, shelves thick with grime, sunlight slanting in through dirty windows like old memories. Silent, still, forgotten. All of it made sense except one thing. There was a door in the back, not like the rest. Heavy oak, strange in a room full of old pine and rot. Newer somehow, but covered in the same dust as everything else. Silas tried the handle. It didn't budge. Not rusted, not broken, just locked. He leaned in, eyes scanning every inch. No keyhole, no latch, no hinges on his side. Just a door that refused to open inside a building he supposedly owned outright. The seller had been clear. Every room, every wall, every door, his. But this one didn't act like it got the memo. He ran his hand along the edges, hoping to feel a catch, a groove, anything. The wood was cold in some places, warm in others, solid, uneven, but sealed tight. Like something or someone didn't want it opened. He stepped back and stared. The rest of the store felt like his now. The quiet shelves, the soft afternoon light through cracked glass. But that door stood like it belonged to someone else. Then came the knock. He turned toward the front window. A woman's shape stood in the sun outside. Plain dress, hair tied back, the kind of look you see on folks who do their own work and don't complain about it. He opened the door. "You must be the new owner," she said. Her smile was polite, her voice cautious. "Silas Meridian," he offered. "I'm Clara Westbrook. I run the boarding house across the road." She looked past him into the store. Her eyes didn't settle, just kept drifting like they were searching for something. Something she half hoped wouldn't be there. "I saw you walking around earlier," she said. "Been a long time since anyone stepped inside. Most folks figured it'd stay that way." "Why's that?" Silas asked, stepping aside so she could see more. Clara paused, her gaze landing on the back wall. "That building's got history," she said. "Not all of it good." She hesitated again. Chose her next words like they mattered. "Gideon Thornfield, the man who sold it to you, he inherited it but never wanted it. Tried for years to get rid of it." "Well, at $99 I see why folks were nervous," Silas joked. But Clara didn't laugh. "It wasn't the price," she said. "The Thornfields, they've got secrets. The kind they'll do anything to protect. And now that they've lost this building, they'll want it back." Silas opened his mouth to ask what she meant, but Clara's eyes locked on something behind him. Her face went pale. She took a step back. "That door," she whispered. "It's still there." The way she said it, it wasn't surprise. "It was dread. You know about it?" he asked. Clara nodded slowly, eyes fixed on it. "Everyone in town knows about that door. No one knows what's behind it. And after what happened to the last man who tried to find out, maybe that's a good thing." Silas felt his chest tighten. "What happened to him?" "Samuel Morrison," Clara said, wrapping her arms around herself. "Carpenter. Quiet man. Liked puzzles. One day he said he'd figure that door out. He never got the chance." She turned to the window. He was never seen again. Clara glanced at the door again, then out the front window, like she was checking to make sure no one was listening. "Samuel was a good man," she said, voice low. "Steady, smart. If anyone could have figured that door out, it was him." She said he spent weeks studying it, brought tools, tried all sorts of things. Silas nodded, gently prompting when she went quiet. "One morning," Clara continued, "his wife found him in his workshop, gone. No wounds, no signs of a struggle. The doctor said his heart just stopped." She paused. "But Samuel was 35, strong, healthy." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The strange part? Every one of his notes was missing. Sketches, diagrams, measurements. All of it gone. Like someone had wiped away every trace." Silas turned to the sealed door, feeling something cold settle in his chest. "Maybe someone didn't want him finding out what was behind it," he said. "That's what a lot of folks believe," Clara replied. "But no one knows who. Or why it mattered so much. The silence between them stretched. Silas found his eyes drawn to the door again, but this time with a different feeling. If someone had gone that far to keep it closed, even killed to protect it, then there had to be something behind it worth hiding. He should have walked away, but he didn't want to. There's got to be another way in, he muttered, more to himself than to Clara. Maybe from outside, through a wall, a crawl space, something. She shook her head slowly. Samuel thought the same. He measured every wall, checked from all sides. Say that room could only be reached through this door. Silas stepped forward, pressing his ear to the wood, just to be sure, and then a sound, faint, almost like breathing. He pulled back sharply. That couldn't be right. The place had been locked for years. You ever hear anything behind it? He asked. Clara froze. Her face went pale again. Why would you ask that? I thought He stopped. It sounded ridiculous. Never mind. But Clara was already backing toward the front. You did hear something. That's how it starts. Her voice was shaking now. First the sounds, then the dreams. Then it doesn't leave you alone. She had the door open behind her, just like Samuel. Clara, take my advice, Silas. Whatever you paid for this place, it wasn't worth it. She was gone, leaving Silas alone with the door, and the sinking feeling that this store came with more than old shelves and peeling paint. It came with a secret, one that had already taken at least one life. Silas stared at the wood. He no longer believed Samuel Morrison died of natural causes. He'd been silenced, and now Silas was following the same trail, but he wasn't ready to stop. Not now, not with the truth so close. The next morning, Silas walked into the town records office. It was a cramped little place that smelled like paper and time. The clerk was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses. He blinked when Silas asked about Samuel Morrison's death. Don't get many questions about that anymore, he said softly. Shame. Good man. He disappeared into the back, then returned with a dusty folder. The official report was short. Samuel Morrison, age 35, found by his wife, Martha, caused sudden cardiac arrest. No signs of trauma. No foul play suspected. Was there an investigation? Silas asked. The clerk shrugged. Sheriff looked into it, but nothing to investigate far as he could tell. Silas scanned the page again, then froze. Samuel's death happened exactly 3 days after he'd spent an entire afternoon inside the old store. 3 days after he'd last examined the door. Did anyone ask what he was working on? The clerk hesitated. His wife said it was some old building. He stayed up late, drew diagrams, talked about cracking a puzzle, but when he died, she burned it all. Silas left the office with more questions than answers, and more reason than ever to keep going. Silas spent the morning asking quiet questions about the Thornfield family and the building he'd bought. Most folks didn't like the topic. They gave vague answers, then quickly changed the subject. It was well past noon before he found someone willing to talk. An older man named Henry ran the town's hardware store. He'd known the Thornfields most of his life. Old Marcus Thornfield was a strange one, Henry said, leaning on the counter. Built that store back in the 80s, but he never left it alone. Always changing things, adding walls, moving rooms around. People just thought he was particular about how he ran the place. What kind of business was it? Silas asked. General store, Henry replied, but there were parts of it folks weren't allowed to see. Said it was for storage, but deliveries always came through the front. It never made sense. Henry squinted at him. You bought the building, didn't you? Silas nodded once. Henry's expression turned serious. Marcus died about 15 years ago. Heart attack. But he was in his 70s, so no one questioned it. Not like Samuel Morrison. Silas leaned in. And Gideon, his son. Wouldn't touch the place, Henry said. He glanced around the empty shop, then lowered his voice. Gideon knew what his father was hiding back there, and he knew. Some secrets are dangerous enough to kill for. Just then the bell above the door jingled. Henry straightened up. His whole posture changed. Afternoon, Mrs. Thornfield, he said, suddenly stiff. Silas turned. A woman had entered. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, cold expression. She looked Silas over like he was something she meant to have removed. So, she said, you're the opportunist who bought our family's property at auction. Her voice was calm, but the warning in it was clear. I'd advise you to reconsider your investment, she said. That building has a way of punishing those who don't respect its history. Then she was gone. Silas didn't respond. He didn't have to. He returned to the store that afternoon with a crowbar and a sledgehammer. If the Thornfields wanted that door left alone, it meant one thing. There was something worth finding behind it. He spent over an hour studying the door, more carefully than before. A lantern lit the space. The wood was darker, heavier than anything else in the building. When he tapped it with the hammer, it gave off a low, solid thud, thicker than it looked. Then he saw it, just above the baseboard, barely visible through the dust, scratches, long deep gouges in the floor, like someone had tried to pry the door open. Silas crouched, running his fingers along the marks. Samuel Morrison, he thought. This was where he tried. Following the gouges, Silas found a loose board near the corner. He wedged the crowbar underneath. The plank lifted. Beneath it, a small space, and inside a folded piece of paper, old, yellowed, but intact. The handwriting was neat, measured. Samuel's, a man used to precision, but the words were filled with fear. Day 12. The door isn't normal. No hinges, no handle. But the wood has pressure points, some kind of built-in locking system. I found similar designs in prison blueprints from back east. This wasn't made to keep people out. It was built to keep something in. Silas's breath caught. What would need to be contained? He kept reading, spoke with Marcus's old assistant today. He's terrified. Confirmed my suspicions. There are documents hidden in that room. Records that could ruin prominent families in town. Marcus called it his insurance policy. Final entry, I think I've figured it out. The lock requires 2 people. Sequence must be activated together. I've asked Martha to help me tomorrow night. We're finally going to open it, but Samuel had died before that night ever came, and now Silas held the last note he ever wrote. Now Silas understood why Samuel's notes had vanished. Someone had known. They knew Samuel was close to solving the puzzle, and they made sure he never got the chance. Then noise. Floorboards creaked at the front of the store. Slow, heavy footsteps. Someone had entered, while Silas was focused on the carpenter's final words. I was hoping you'd be reasonable, a man said from the shadows. Silas froze. He knew that voice. Gideon Thornfield had come back. But I can see you're just as foolish as that carpenter was, Gideon added, stepping into view. Gone was the jittery man from the auction. This Gideon was different, calm, cold, in control. Samuel Morrison was warned, Gideon said. He didn't listen, and it cost him. 2 large men appeared behind him, silent, solid, hired hands. I'm offering you $5,000 for the building, Gideon said. 50 times what you paid. You can walk away with a profit. And your life. Silas slipped the folded note into his pocket. And if I don't? Gideon smiled, just barely. Then you'll learn why Samuel Morrison's heart stopped beating. The men stepped closer. Silas was boxed in. The front was blocked. The back offered only that sealed door. He gripped his crowbar tighter, heart pounding. He wasn't just holding onto a building now. He was holding a secret someone had already died trying to protect, but he'd come too far to back down. You're sure you want to do this? Silas asked, voice calm. Because if anything happens to me, the truth comes out. I've already shared what I found. It was a bluff, but it landed. Gideon's smug look twitched. You're bluffing, he said, but there was hesitation in his voice. Silas reached into his pocket and pulled out the yellowed paper, held it up for all to see. Samuel wrote everything down. His investigation, the secrets this room holds, the people your father blackmailed. One of the hired men shifted, nervous. Boss, if folks find out about the old business, shut up. Gideon snapped. That was all Silas needed to hear. More than one man was involved in whatever Marcus Thornfield had built. Here's my offer, Silas said. Steady now. You tell me what's behind that door, and I'll think about keeping it quiet. But if you try to shut me up like you did Samuel, those notes go straight to the territorial marshal. Gideon stared him down, then slowly raised a hand. His men stepped back. You have no idea what you're messing with, he said. My father wasn't just collecting blackmail. He was protecting this town from the truth. What kind of truth? Gideon's jaw tightened. The kind that proves half the powerful families around here built everything they have on lies, he said bitterly. Land stolen from native tribes. Fake mining deeds. Men murdered to clear claims. And my father helped arrange it all. Silas felt sick. Your father organized it? He was the go-between. He knew how to clean the messes up and keep proof in case someone turned on him. Gideon looked toward the sealed door. That room holds it all. Documents, maps, confessions. Enough to bring half this town to ruin, including me. Then why not burn it? Gideon exhaled hard. Because we can't open it either. His voice cracked with frustration. My father designed the lock himself, and he took the secret to the grave. Silas didn't speak. He just tightened his grip on the crowbar and stared at the door. So we had to stop him, Gideon said flatly. Before he exposed everything, Silas let the words settle. So you killed him, to protect criminals. We killed him to protect the structure of this territory, Gideon shot back. Do you have any idea what would happen if all those names came out? The chaos? The fallout? He stepped closer. Innocent families would suffer when their reputations got dragged down. Samuel Morrison was a decent man, but he was naive. He thought truth mattered more than peace. The confession hung in the still air. Gideon had just admitted to murder, maybe more than one, and he spoke like it was a burden, not a crime. Like someone forced to make ugly decisions to keep order. This wasn't just about a few bad men. This was a network, a machine, and they believed stopping the truth was a form of justice. I need to know what's in that room, Gideon said, voice colder now. What did my father leave behind? Names, evidence? How much damage are we talking? Silas knew this was his only window. Then you'll have to help me open it, he said. Samuel's note said it takes 2 people. You're in no position to make demands, Gideon snapped. But something flickered in his eyes, doubt. The unknown scared him. Actually, Silas said, pulling out his last card. I am. I told Clara Westbrook about Samuel. If I don't show up by sundown, she's under orders to contact the federal marshal. It was a bluff, but it worked. Gideon went still. I know how to open the door, Silas continued. And once we're both inside, you'll have what you need to protect yourself. But if you kill me now, you'll never know what's in there, and the feds will come asking why. Gideon gave a low, humorless laugh. You're bluffing. If you could open that door, you'd have done it already. Samuel figured it out. He just needed someone else. 2 pressure points, held at the same time. Silas stepped toward the door, still gripping the crowbar. So the real question is, do you want to see what your father left behind? Or do you want to spend the rest of your life waiting for someone else to crack it? Gideon's jaw flexed, but he was listening. Silas had turned the tables, offered him a way to control the situation. Even if we open it, Gideon said, what makes you think I'll let you walk out alive? Silas didn't flinch, because once we're standing in that room, you'll understand. Killing me would only bring more eyes than you can handle. Gideon gave a sharp nod to his men. They stepped back toward the front, giving space but still close enough to act. Fine, Gideon said. Tell me what to do. Silas faced the door. Samuel's notes fresh in his mind. The carpenter had marked, where the wood grain shifted, tiny differences that hinted at internal mechanisms. Silas placed his hand about 3 feet up on the left side. There's another one here, he told Gideon, pointing to the right side, same height. We press and hold for 10 seconds. At the same time, Gideon took position, his expression unreadable. If this is a trick, it's not, Silas cut in. It's justice. They pressed the points together. At first, nothing. Then, a click, a faint grinding, like old gears turning. 10 seconds later, the door swung open on silent hinges. No burst of air. No trap. Just the musty scent of sealed paper and untouched time. Silas raised the lantern. The room was small, 8 feet by 8, maybe. Wooden filing cabinets lined the walls, each drawer labeled with names and dates. In the center, a desk covered in ledgers, maps, and brittle legal papers. But the far wall stopped them both. Photographs, dozens, arranged in rows like courtroom evidence, faces caught in handshakes, deals, secret meetings. Prominent citizens frozen in moments they never wanted remembered. Below each photo, a placard, name, date, crime. And suddenly, it was all real. Everything Samuel Morrison had died trying to prove was right here. My God, Gideon whispered. He stared at the wall. The photographs, the names, the dates, he documented everything. Silas stepped closer, examining the images. Land seizures, forged contracts, witness intimidation, and worse. Marcus Thornfield hadn't just kept records. He'd turned blackmail into an archive, but it was the last photo that stopped Silas cold. A younger Gideon Thornfield, standing over a man's body, shovel in hand, fresh earth beside him. The placard beneath it read, Samuel Morrison, October 15th. Problem solved. So that was the truth. Samuel hadn't died in his workshop. He'd been murdered, buried, and Marcus Thornfield had taken the photo, which meant Marcus knew his son was planning to kill Samuel and had sealed the proof behind a locked door, waiting for someone to find it. "You're looking at your own death warrant," Silas said quietly, holding the photograph up for Gideon to see. But when he turned, Gideon was smiling and pointing a gun at his chest. "You can't kill me here," Silas said, heart pounding. "Not with all this evidence around. It's too obvious." "Actually," Gideon replied calmly, "it's perfect. A curious buyer breaks into a sealed room, triggers an old mechanism, and dies by accident. These old buildings, sure, they have their risks." But even as he spoke, his eyes flicked back to the photo. The look on his face had changed. Silas pushed. "Your father knew. He never trusted you. He set this room up to protect the town from you." Gideon's hand tightened on the grip. "He was a paranoid old man," he snapped. "He recorded everything. Every deal. Every conversation. Even had me followed. Because he knew what kind of man you were." "No," Gideon growled. "Because he knew I was smarter than him." His voice cracked with old bitterness. "He wasted decades playing games with small-town crooks. I saw what this territory was becoming. We're on the edge of statehood. Once that happens, all this—" He swept a hand at the files and becomes buried history. "But the room?" Silas asked. Gideon nodded. "That's why I came back. The evidence in here could still destroy families. Judges, business owners, politicians." "You weren't protecting the status quo," Silas realized. "You were preparing to take it over." "I was going to modernize it," Gideon admitted. "A one-time payment. Families could buy their freedom, wipe it all clean. No more slow bleed. Just peace of mind." He looked around at the cabinets. "Do you have any idea what peace is worth to men with everything to lose? And Samuel?" Gideon's eyes darkened. He would have given it all to the territorial marshal. Burned everything to feel righteous, he stepped forward. "I couldn't let that happen." Then a noise from the front of the store. Footsteps. Voices. Someone called. Silas's name, Clara Westbrook, had returned, and she wasn't alone. "In here," Silas shouted. "Bring the marshal!" Gideon swore. He turned, swinging the gun toward the entrance, but Clara stepped through first, followed by two men. One wore a badge and had his own weapon drawn. "Drop it, Thornfield," Marshal Davies said. "We heard enough." But Gideon didn't drop the gun. He smiled. "Marshal Davies. I wondered when your name would show up." The marshal flinched. Gideon gestured to the wall. "It's there, right next to the others." Clara looked from the marshal to the photo wall, her expression hardening. "That's right," Gideon continued. "My father didn't just collect evidence on criminals. He collected it on the men sent to stop them." He stepped forward. "So here's how this works. You all walk out. Forget what you saw. And your reputations stay clean." The marshal stood frozen, torn between his badge and his past, and Silas saw it. Even the law had been corrupted. But Clara didn't move. She stepped forward instead, calm and certain. "There's something you should know." "Gideon," she said, "your father didn't just document crimes. He documented solutions too," Clara said quietly. She held up a small leather journal, something she must have grabbed from the desk while the men argued. "This," she said, "lists every honest person left in this territory. People who can be trusted to handle this evidence. People not in your father's files, because they never compromised their integrity." Gideon's face began to crack. His advantage was slipping. The standoff had shifted. No longer just power against truth, but a three-way collision. Justice, corruption, and survival. Then the third man who'd come in with Clara stepped forward. Silas noticed the badge on his coat. "Deputy Federal Marshal Thompson," the man said. "Clara Westbrook contacted me yesterday about some suspicious land records. Turns out she had a good instinct." Gideon went pale. A federal marshal meant the entire Thornfield operation had just left the safety of territorial politics. "Everything you said in this room," Thompson added, "was heard by federal authority, including your confession to murder and conspiracy." Marshal Davies, still holding his weapon, slowly lowered it. His freedom was already gone. At the front of the store, Gideon's two men had vanished. The second they heard federal, they'd run. "You have no idea what you're about to unleash," Gideon said, his voice rising with desperation. "This evidence will destroy half the territory. Then maybe half the territory deserves to fall." Clara said evenly, "Samuel Morrison died believing truth mattered more than convenience. The least we can do is honor that." Thompson kept his gun steady as he stepped forward. "Put it down, Thornfield. You're facing federal charges, murder, obstruction, conspiracy. Don't add assaulting a federal officer to the list." For a heartbeat, Gideon looked ready to fight. Then he sagged. The gun slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull thud, like a final verdict. Marshal Thompson secured Gideon and Davies, while Clara helped Silas gather the most damning documents. The photograph of Samuel's murder went straight into federal hands. So did Marcus Thornfield's ledgers, names, and notes, evidence stretching back 2 decades. In the weeks that followed, the entire territory shook under the weight of what was found. Scandal after scandal broke open. Dozens of powerful families faced charges for fraud, theft, bribery, and worse. Some fled. Others confessed and cut deals. Gideon. Thornfield was tried and sentenced to hang. Marshal Davies was given 20 years in federal prison. The territorial government itself collapsed, rebuilt, under federal oversight, to ensure the old corruption couldn't rise. Again, Clara Westbrook was named interim mayor. With her journal of trustworthy citizens, she helped rebuild what had been lost. Her boarding house became a makeshift courthouse. Silas kept the store, but not the way Marcus Thornfield had envisioned. The front became a real general store, serving the townsfolk. The back room, once sealed in secrets, became a reading room, a legal library where citizens could view public records, land claims, and justice in plain sight. On the front wall, just beside the entrance, Silas placed a plaque, in memory of Samuel Morrison, a carpenter who died seeking truth every day. People walked past it, to buy supplies, to research rights, to ask honest questions in a place built on dark answers. Samuel's sacrifice meant something now. His name was no longer whispered in regret. It was remembered, honored. The same door that once sealed away corruption now stood open, permanently letting sunlight fall where secrets once lived. Marcus Thornfield's so-called insurance policy had worked, but not to protect the guilty, to expose them. 6 months after, buying the store for $99, Silas stood in his rebuilt shop, watching Clara sort records at the back table. The mystery was solved. The guilty punished. Justice had come, not in the way anyone expected, but in the way it was needed. Samuel Morrison could finally rest. His truth had been heard. The door to darkness would never close again. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen to watch another unforgettable tale where courage and truth collide. Subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep telling stories like these. Justice lives in the light now. Let's keep it there.